The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The private airstrip was quiet, save for the distant hum of engines and the occasional shout from ground crew members rushing to prepare for incoming flights. Emma Carter stood outside her small workshop, wiping grease-streaked hands on an already dirty rag. Her day had been long, filled with fixing old trucks and tuning up cars that should have been retired years ago. She sighed, glancing at the clock on the wall. It was almost time to close up shop. Just as she was about to lock the door, her phone buzzed loudly on the workbench. Emma frowned, picking it up. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello? Is this Emma Carter?" a clipped voice asked on the other end. "Yes, speaking," Emma replied cautiously. "This is the ground operations team at Greenfield Airstrip. We've got a situation here and we need your help urgently." Emma raised an eyebrow. Greenfield Airstrip wasn't far from her workshop. It catered mostly to wealthy clients who owned private jets. What could they possibly want with her? "What kind of situation?" she asked. "A jet has broken down on the runway. The pilot says it's a serious issue, and none of our regular mechanics are available right now. You're the closest qualified person we can reach. Can you come immediately?" Emma bit her lip. This sounded like trouble. Fixing jets wasn't exactly part of her usual job description. Sure, she knew engines inside and out, but working on something as complex as a private aircraft came with risks. Still, money was tight. Rent for the workshop was due soon, and she hadn't been able to pay herself a proper salary in weeks. If she turned this down, she might not get another opportunity like it anytime soon. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said finally. "Thank you, Ms. Carter. We'll see you soon." The line went dead. Emma grabbed her heavy toolkit, slinging it into the back of her beat-up van. As she drove toward the airstrip, her mind raced. Who owned the jet? Was it someone important? And most importantly, could she really fix whatever was wrong? Doubts swirled in her head, but she pushed them aside. She'd faced tough challenges before, and she always managed to pull through. When she arrived at the airstrip, the scene was chaotic. Ground crew members scurried around, shouting instructions to one another. In the middle of it all sat a sleek, black jet, its polished surface gleaming under the fading sunlight. It looked expensive, too expensive for Emma's comfort. She parked her van near the edge of the tarmac and climbed out, feeling out of place in her oil-stained coveralls. A tall man in a sharp suit approached her. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his piercing blue eyes scanned her skeptically. "Are you the mechanic?" he asked, his tone tinged with disbelief. "That's me," Emma replied, straightening her posture. "Emma Carter." The man nodded curtly. "I'm Daniel Harper. This is my jet." He gestured toward the aircraft behind him. "We're on a tight schedule. Can you handle this?" Emma crossed her arms, refusing to let his skepticism rattle her. "I'll do my best. Let me take a look." Daniel stepped aside, allowing her access to the plane. Emma climbed the stairs leading to the cockpit, where the pilot greeted her nervously. "Something's wrong with the hydraulics," he explained. "We were taxiing to the runway when everything locked up. No warning, nothing." Emma nodded, making a mental note of the symptoms. She descended into the belly of the jet, opening panels and inspecting the intricate network of pipes and wires. The smell of hydraulic fluid hit her nose immediately. Something was definitely leaking. She traced the source to a ruptured line, a critical component that controlled essential functions like landing gear and flaps. Without it, the jet couldn't fly safely. Emma emerged from the plane, finding Daniel waiting for her. "It's bad," she said bluntly. "The hydraulic line is damaged. Normally I'd replace it entirely, but I don't have the parts here. If you want this fixed tonight, I'll have to improvise." Daniel frowned, clearly unhappy with the news. "How long will that take?" "At least an hour, maybe more," Emma replied. "And there's no guarantee it'll hold until you land wherever you're going. But if you trust me, I'll make it happen." Daniel hesitated, his gaze flickering between Emma and the jet. Time was running out. He had meetings lined up across the country, and missing them would cost him millions. Yet he had no choice. "Do it," he said finally. "But don't mess this up." Emma nodded, already focused on the task ahead. She returned to her van, rummaging through her toolbox for materials she could use to patch the line temporarily. Scrap metal, duct tape, and sealant weren't ideal, but they'd have to do. She worked quickly, her hands moving with practiced precision despite the pressure. Sweat dripped down her face as she tightened bolts and secured connections, knowing that any mistake could mean disaster. As she labored, Daniel watched from a distance. He paced back and forth, checking his watch every few minutes. Occasionally, he glanced at Emma, surprised by how calm and confident she seemed. Most people would crumble under such intense scrutiny, yet she appeared unfazed. For the first time, he wondered if he'd underestimated her. Finally, after what felt like hours, Emma emerged from the jet, wiping her hands on a rag. "It's done," she announced. "You should be good to go, for now. Just don't push the plane too hard until you can get it properly serviced." Daniel approached cautiously, inspecting her handiwork. To his untrained eye, it looked solid. "You sure about this?" he asked. "As sure as I can be," Emma replied. "If anything feels off during the flight, tell the pilot to land immediately." Daniel nodded, offering a rare smile. "You saved me," he said simply. "Thank you." Before he boarded the jet, he turned to Emma one last time. "I owe you one," he added, his tone softer than before. Then he disappeared into the aircraft, leaving Emma standing alone on the tarmac. As the engines roared to life and the jet began its ascent into the evening sky, Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She'd done it. She'd fixed a billionaire's jet under impossible circumstances. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. The days following the incident at the airstrip passed quickly for Emma Carter. She returned to her workshop, expecting things to go back to normal. Fixing old cars and helping neighbors with their vehicles kept her busy, but there was a nagging thought in the back of her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about Daniel Harper, the billionaire whose jet she had repaired, and the way he had looked at her before boarding the plane. It wasn't gratitude or relief that lingered in his expression. It was something deeper, something harder to define. Emma tried to push the memory aside, focusing instead on her work. But late one afternoon, as she was tightening bolts under the hood of an aging sedan, her phone buzzed on the nearby workbench. She wiped her hands and picked it up, surprised to see an unknown number again. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Ms. Carter, this is Daniel Harper," came the smooth voice on the other end. Emma froze for a moment, caught off guard. "Why, was he calling her?" "Mr. Harper," she replied, regaining her composure. "What can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you properly for what you did," Daniel said. His tone was polite but warm, lacking the cold professionalism she'd expected. "You saved me from a major disaster, and I don't take that lightly." Emma shrugged even though he couldn't see her. "Just doing my job," she said simply. "Well, I'd like to repay the favor," Daniel continued. "I've sent you an envelope with 2 tickets to New York. There's also an invitation to dinner tomorrow evening at my penthouse. I hope you'll join me." Emma blinked, unsure how to respond. Dinner at a billionaire's penthouse? That was far outside her comfort zone. "That's very generous," she managed finally. "But why are you doing this?" There was a pause on the other end, as if Daniel were considering his words carefully. "Because I want to get to know you better," he admitted. "You're different from most people I meet, and I think we could learn a lot from each other." Emma hesitated. The idea of spending time with someone like Daniel felt surreal. He lived in a world completely foreign to hers, a world of private jets, luxury penthouses, and endless wealth. Still, curiosity got the better of her. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll come." The next day, Emma found herself standing in front of a tall glass skyscraper in the heart of Manhattan. She tugged nervously at the borrowed dress she wore, feeling out of place among the impeccably dressed crowd entering the building. The elevator ride to the top floor seemed to last forever, and when the doors opened, She stepped into a breathtaking penthouse suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city skyline, and elegant furniture filled the spacious room. In the center of it all stood Daniel, dressed in a tailored suit that made him look every bit the billionaire he was. He smiled when he saw her, gesturing for her to come closer. "You made it," he said warmly. "Can I get you something to drink?" Emma nodded, still taking in the opulence around her. "Water would be great, thanks." As Daniel poured her a glass of sparkling water, Emma glanced around the room. Everything about the penthouse screamed wealth. Expensive art on the walls, plush rugs underfoot, and a grand piano in the corner. Yet despite the extravagance, there was a sense of emptiness in the space, as if something vital were missing. Daniel handed her the glass and motioned for her to sit. "So tell me about yourself," he said, settling into a chair across from her. "How did you become a mechanic?" Emma took a sip of water, buying herself a moment to think. "It started when I was a kid," she began. "My dad loved cars, so I grew up tinkering with engines in our garage. When he passed away, I decided to make it my career. It's not glamorous, but I enjoy it." Daniel listened intently, nodding occasionally. "Sounds like you've worked hard to get where you are," he said. "Most people wouldn't have stuck with it." "What about you?" Emma asked, turning the conversation back to him. "How did you become, well, you?" Daniel chuckled softly. "It wasn't easy," he admitted. "I started a tech company right out of college. We struggled for years, barely making ends meet. But eventually one of our products took off and everything changed overnight." Emma tilted her head, studying him curiously. "Do you ever miss those early days, before all the money and fame?" Daniel paused, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Life was simpler then. Now it feels like everyone wants something from me. It's hard to trust people." Emma nodded, understanding more than she let on. "I know what that's like," she said quietly. "People treat you differently when they find out what you do, or who you are." Their conversation flowed easily. After that, moving from their careers to their personal lives. They talked about their families, their dreams, and the challenges they faced. For the first time in years, Daniel felt like he was speaking to someone who truly understood him, not because they wanted something, but because they cared. When dinner arrived, a beautifully plated meal prepared by a private chef, Emma marveled at the attention to detail. Every bite was exquisite, yet she couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. This kind of luxury was worlds away from her own life, where meals were often quick and simple. "You don't have to eat it if you don't like it," Daniel teased, noticing her hesitation. "No, it's amazing," Emma assured him. "I'm just not used to anything this fancy." Daniel smiled, his eyes softening. "You deserve nice things, Emma. Don't apologize for enjoying them." By the end of the evening, Emma found herself laughing more than she had in months. Daniel had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, and his genuine interest in her stories made her feel valued in a way she hadn't experienced before. As they stood by the window, gazing out at the glittering city below, Emma realized she was seeing a side of Daniel that few people ever did. "Thank you for inviting me," she said sincerely. "I wasn't sure what to expect, but tonight was special." Daniel turned to face her, his expression serious. "I meant what I said earlier," he told her. "I want to get to know you better. If you're willing, that is." Emma hesitated, weighing her options. Spending time with Daniel was exciting, but it also came with risks. What if things didn't work out? What if he decided she wasn't good enough for his world? But as she looked into his eyes, she saw sincerity, and maybe even a hint of vulnerability. "I'd like that," she said finally, smiling. Daniel's face lit up, and for the first time, Emma saw a glimpse of the man behind the billionaire facade. He wasn't perfect, but neither was she. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. As they parted ways later that night, Emma climbed into a cab, her mind racing. She had no idea where this newfound connection with Daniel would lead, but one thing was certain. Her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Daniel grew closer. What had started as a simple dinner invitation turned into regular meetings. Sometimes they met at Daniel's penthouse, where Emma would marvel at the breathtaking views of the city. Other times, Daniel surprised her by showing up at her workshop, dressed in casual clothes that made him look almost ordinary. They spent hours talking about everything, from their childhoods to their dreams for the future. Emma enjoyed learning more about Daniel. Beneath his polished exterior, he was thoughtful and kind. He told her stories about the early days of his company, when he worked long hours with little pay, fueled only by passion and determination. She admired his drive and resilience, qualities she recognized in herself, but she also saw glimpses of loneliness in him. Despite his wealth and success, Daniel often seemed distant, as if something were missing from his life. For his part, Daniel found himself drawn to Emma in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her honesty and humor refreshed him. Unlike the people in his usual social circle, who were always trying to impress him or gain something from their relationship, Emma treated him like any other person. She didn't care about his money or status, she cared about him. That was rare and incredibly appealing. One evening, Daniel invited Emma to join him for a charity gala aboard his yacht. "It's not my favorite event," he admitted, "but it's important for business. I'd love for you to come." Emma hesitated. Attending a high-profile event wasn't exactly her idea of fun. She imagined rows of impeccably dressed guests sipping champagne and discussing topics she knew nothing about. Still, she didn't want to disappoint Daniel. "Sure," she said finally, "but don't expect me to blend in." Daniel laughed. "Don't worry, you'll be fine. Besides, I'll be there with you." On the night of the gala, Emma borrowed a dress from a friend, a sleek navy gown that fit surprisingly well. When Daniel arrived to pick her up, his eyes widened slightly at the sight of her. "You look stunning," he said sincerely. Emma felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "Thanks. You clean up pretty good yourself." The yacht was even more luxurious than Emma had imagined. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling and servers circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres and drinks. Guests mingled, laughing and chatting, while soft music played in the background. Emma clung to Daniel's arm, feeling out of place but determined not to let it show. As they moved through the crowd, Daniel introduced her to several of his colleagues and business partners. Some greeted her warmly, while others gave her polite but dismissive smiles. Emma could tell what they were thinking. Who was this mechanic and why was she here with Daniel Harper? At one point, a tall man in an expensive suit approached them. "Daniel," he said smoothly, shaking hands. "I see you've brought a guest tonight. Introduce us." "This is Emma Carter," Daniel replied, wrapping an arm protectively around her shoulders. "Emma, this is Richard Langston, a fellow entrepreneur." Richard raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Carter? Any relation to Carter Motors?" "No," Emma replied firmly. "Just a mechanic." Richard chuckled, though it sounded forced. "Well, mechanics are valuable too. Keeps our toys running smoothly, doesn't it?" He gave her a patronizing smile before excusing himself. Emma rolled her eyes once he was out of earshot. "Friendly guy," she muttered sarcastically. Daniel sighed. Ignore him. Most of these people wouldn't know authenticity if it hit them in the face. Emma smiled faintly, appreciating his support. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in this world. As the evening wore on, she began to feel increasingly restless. Excusing herself, she slipped away from the crowd and headed below deck, where the yacht's engine room was located. She wandered among the machinery, running her fingers over the smooth metal surfaces. The hum of the engines soothed her, reminding her of the workshop back home. For a moment, she forgot about the glitz and glamour upstairs and simply enjoyed the familiarity of her surroundings. Unbeknownst to her, Daniel noticed her absence and followed her below deck. When he found her standing near the engine, he leaned against the doorway, watching her silently. "Thought I might find you here," he said after a moment. Emma turned, startled. "Oh, hey. Sorry. I just needed some air." Daniel stepped closer, his expression softening. "You don't have to apologize, I get it, this isn't your scene. It's not that, Emma replied quickly. I mean, yeah, it's overwhelming, but she trailed off, unsure how to explain her feelings. But? Daniel prompted gently. Emma sighed, leaning against the wall. Sometimes I wonder if I'm out of my depth. Your world, it's so different from mine. I keep waiting for someone to realize I don't belong here. Daniel frowned, stepping closer until he was standing right in front of her. Listen to me, he said firmly. You belong wherever you choose to be. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. His words struck a chord deep within her. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she did deserve to be here. With Daniel by her side, she felt braver, stronger. Thank you, she whispered, meeting his gaze. Daniel smiled softly, reaching out to take her hand. No need to thank me, just promise me one thing. What's that? That you won't run away when things get tough. We're in this together, okay? Emma nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Okay. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the steady rhythm of the engines before heading back upstairs to rejoin the party. Though the rest of the evening passed without incident, Emma couldn't shake the sense that something significant had shifted between them. It wasn't just friendship anymore, not entirely. There was an undeniable connection growing between them, one that neither of them could ignore. Later that night, as Emma lay in bed replaying the events of the gala, in her mind she realized she was falling for Daniel. The thought scared her a little. After all, relationships like theirs rarely worked out in real life. But for now, she decided to embrace the uncertainty. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for sure. Daniel Harper had changed her life in ways she never could have predicted, and she wouldn't trade that for anything. The weeks that followed the charity gala brought Emma and Daniel even closer. Their bond deepened with each passing day, built not just on shared experiences but on a growing mutual understanding. They spent time in both of their worlds, Daniel accompanying Emma to her workshop, where he marveled at her skill with tools, and Emma joining Daniel at his penthouse or attending formal events by his side. It was clear to anyone who saw them together that they cared deeply for one another. Still, doubts lingered in Emma's mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that their relationship was too good to last. Daniel lived in a world of luxury, power, and influence while she came from humble beginnings. How could someone like him truly be happy with someone like her? And what about the people around him, the ones who whispered behind her back, questioning why a billionaire would choose a mechanic as his partner? Emma tried not to let those thoughts consume her, but they crept in during quiet moments. One afternoon, as she worked on an old truck in her workshop, she found herself staring at nothing in particular, lost in thought. The sound of footsteps startled her, and she turned to see Daniel walking toward her, holding 2 cups of coffee. I thought you could use a break, he said, handing her one of the cups. Emma smiled gratefully, taking a sip. Thanks. This is perfect. Daniel leaned against the workbench, watching her carefully. You seem distracted lately, he observed. Is everything okay? Emma hesitated, unsure how to put her feelings into words. It's nothing, really, she said finally. Just, sometimes I wonder if we're moving too fast. Daniel frowned slightly, setting his cup down. Why do you say that? Emma sighed, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. Look at us, Daniel. You're this successful, powerful guy, and I'm just me, a mechanic trying to make ends meet. People are going to talk, and I don't want to drag you into any drama because of me. Daniel stepped closer, his expression serious. Emma, listen to me. I didn't fall for you because of your job or your background. I fell for you, for your strength, your kindness, your honesty. Those things matter more to me than anything else. But what about everyone else? Emma asked quietly. Your friends, your colleagues, they already think I don't belong in your world. What happens when they start pressuring you to move on? Daniel shook his head, placing a hand on her shoulder. Let them talk. Their opinions don't define my life, or yours. All that matters is what we feel for each other. And I can tell you right now I've never felt this way about anyone before. His words sent a shiver down Emma's spine. Hearing Daniel speak so openly about his feelings gave her hope, but it also made her nervous. Relationships like theirs were rare, and the pressure to succeed would always be there. Could they really overcome all the challenges ahead? A few days later, Daniel invited Emma to join him on a trip to San Francisco. He had business meetings scheduled, but he promised to set aside time for them to explore the city together. Emma agreed, eager to spend more time with him outside of New York. The flight to California was smooth, and Emma found herself relaxing as they soared above the clouds. Sitting next to Daniel, she realized how natural it felt to be by his side. Despite their differences, they complemented each other in ways she hadn't expected. When they arrived in San Francisco, Daniel checked them into a luxurious hotel overlooking the bay. From their suite, they had a stunning view of the Golden Gate Bridge, its red towers glowing in the late afternoon sun. Emma stood by the window, mesmerized by the sight. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Not as beautiful as you," Daniel replied, stepping up behind her. His voice was soft, almost hesitant. Emma turned to look at him, surprised by the intensity in his eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Before she could react, he kissed her gently, his lips warm and tender against hers. Emma's heart raced as she wrapped her arms around him, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, filled with emotion and longing. When they finally pulled apart, Emma stared up at him, breathless. "What was that for?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "For being you," Daniel answered simply. "For reminding me what it means to live, not just exist." Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. In that moment, all her doubts melted away. Whatever obstacles lay ahead, she knew she wanted to face them with Daniel by her side. Over the next few days, they explored San Francisco together, visiting landmarks like Alcatraz Island and Fisherman's Wharf. They walked along the waterfront, sharing stories and laughter, and ate at cozy cafes tucked away in hidden neighborhoods. For the first time in years, Emma felt truly happy, not just content but genuinely joyful. On their final evening in the city, Daniel surprised her with dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the bay. As they sat under twinkling string lights, sipping wine and enjoying plates of fresh seafood, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. This was what love should feel like: easy, natural, and full of warmth. "Thank you for coming with me," Daniel said, breaking the comfortable silence. "These past few days have been amazing." "Me too," Emma replied, smiling. "I needed this, a chance to step back and remember what's important." Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "There's something I need to say," he began, his tone serious. "I know we haven't known each other for very long, but I've never felt this connected to anyone before. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Daniel, I'm not asking for anything specific," he continued, "but I want you to know that I'm in this, for real. No matter what happens, I want to build a future with you." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she squeezed his hand. "I want that too," she admitted, "more than anything." They stayed like that for a while, holding hands and gazing out at the glittering lights of the city below. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to dream, to imagine a life where she and Daniel could create something meaningful together. As they returned to their hotel later that night, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, moments when the world might try to pull them apart. But she also knew that as long as they faced those challenges together, they could overcome anything. Lying in bed that night, Emma replayed the events of the trip in her mind. Daniel's words echoed in her thoughts, filling her with hope and determination. Whatever the future held, she was ready to embrace it, with Daniel by her side. The months that followed Emma and Daniel's trip to San Francisco were filled with excitement and growth. Their relationship had reached a new level of intimacy, and both of them felt more connected than ever before. They continued to balance. They're two very different worlds, Emma working on engines in her modest workshop while Daniel navigated board meetings and high-profile business deals. But they always found time for each other. Despite the challenges, their love only grew stronger. One evening, as Emma was closing up her workshop, she noticed a familiar black car pull into the lot. Smiling, she wiped her hands on a rag and walked over to greet Daniel, who stepped out of the vehicle looking unusually serious. "Hey," Emma said, tilting her head curiously. "What's wrong?" Daniel hesitated, his expression tense. "Can we talk inside?" he asked quietly. Concerned, Emma nodded and led him into the workshop. She turned on the lights, illuminating the cluttered space filled with tools and half-finished projects. Pulling up a stool, she gestured for Daniel to sit. "Okay, spill it," she said gently. Daniel took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "There's been some trouble at work," he began. "A few investors are unhappy with recent decisions I've made. They're threatening to pull funding unless I make changes." Emma frowned, leaning forward. "What kind of changes?" "They want me to focus solely on profit-driven ventures," Daniel explained. "But that goes against everything I believe in. My company has always been about innovation, not just making money." Emma could hear the frustration in his voice. "So what happens if you don't give in to them?" "I might lose control of the company," Daniel admitted. "It's not just my business, it's my life's work. Losing it would be devastating." Emma reached out, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "You've built an empire from scratch, Daniel. You're smarter than these people. If anyone can figure this out, it's you." Daniel gave her a small, grateful smile. "Thanks for saying that, but it's not going to be easy." "No one ever said it would be," Emma replied firmly. "But you don't have to face it alone. I'm here for you, no matter what." Her words seemed to lift a weight off Daniel's shoulders. He nodded, determination returning to his eyes. "I'll find a way to fix this," he said, "and I won't let them change who I am." Over the next few weeks, Daniel worked tirelessly to resolve the conflict with his investors. He spent long hours in meetings, negotiating terms and presenting alternative strategies. Meanwhile, Emma did her best to support him, offering advice when he needed it and simply being there to listen after tough days. Their bond strengthened as they leaned on each other during this difficult time. One Saturday morning, Emma decided to surprise Daniel by visiting his penthouse unannounced. She arrived carrying a bag of fresh bagels and coffee, hoping to cheer him up. When she entered the suite, she found him pacing back and forth, muttering to himself. "Bad day?" she asked lightly, setting the food down on the counter. Daniel stopped pacing, turning to look at her. "Actually, it's been a good day," he said, his tone brighter than she'd expected. "I think I've found a solution." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? What is it?" "I'm restructuring the company," Daniel explained. "Instead of bowing to the investors' demands, I'm buying them out. It'll cost me a lot of money, but it'll give me full control again." "That's amazing," Emma exclaimed, hugging him tightly. "I knew you could do it." "There's more," Daniel added, pulling away slightly to meet her gaze. "This whole situation made me realize something important. Success isn't worth anything if you don't have someone to share it with. Someone who understands you and supports you no matter what." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. "Daniel." He knelt down on one knee, surprising her completely. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant diamond ring. "Emma Carter," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. Will you marry me?" For a moment, Emma couldn't speak. Her mind raced, overwhelmed by the enormity of the question. Then, tears streaming down her face, she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Of course, yes." Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, standing up to pull her into a tight embrace. They stayed like that for several minutes, holding each other as the reality of the moment sank in. Emma couldn't believe it. She was engaged to Daniel Harper, the man who had swept her off her feet and shown her a world beyond her wildest dreams. News of their engagement spread quickly, thanks in part to Daniel's public profile. Friends, family, and colleagues congratulated them, though not everyone was supportive. Some of Daniel's acquaintances whispered behind closed doors, questioning whether Emma was truly worthy of him. Others openly criticized their relationship, calling it a mismatch or predicting its failure. Despite the negativity, Emma refused to let it get to her. She focused instead on planning their future together. With Daniel's encouragement, she decided to expand her workshop into a community center where young people could learn valuable skills in mechanics and engineering. It was a project close to her heart, and Daniel supported it wholeheartedly, providing funding and resources to help bring her vision to life. As the months passed, Emma and Daniel threw themselves into wedding preparations. They chose a quiet venue overlooking the ocean, wanting the celebration to reflect their personalities, simple, meaningful, and intimate. Invitations went out to close friends and family, and plans were made for a reception featuring comfort food and live music. On the morning of the wedding, Emma stood in front of a mirror, dressed in a flowing white gown borrowed from a friend. Her hair was styled loosely, and the diamond ring sparkled on her finger. Nervous butterflies fluttered in her stomach, but excitement outweighed any fear. Today was the start of a new chapter, a chapter she would write alongside the man she loved. When the ceremony began, Emma walked down the aisle to meet Daniel, who stood waiting at the altar. His eyes lit up as he saw her, and she felt her heart swell with joy. As they exchanged vows, promising to stand by each other through thick and thin, Emma realized how far they had come since that fateful day on the airstrip. After the ceremony, guests gathered for the reception, laughing and dancing under strings of fairy lights. Emma and Daniel shared their first dance as husband and wife, swaying to a slow song that seemed to capture the essence of their love. For the first time in years, Emma felt truly at peace, surrounded by people who cared about her and supported her journey. Later that night, as the festivities wound down, Emma and Daniel stood together on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore. The cool breeze carried the scent of salt water, and the moon cast a silvery glow over the water. "You know," Emma said softly, leaning her head against Daniel's shoulder, "I never thought I'd end up here, with you living this life." Daniel wrapped an arm around her, pulling her closer. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But now that I have you, I can't imagine my life any other way." They stood there for a while, lost in the beauty of the moment. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but Emma knew one thing for certain. As long as they faced it together, they could handle anything. And with that thought, she smiled, ready to step into the future hand in hand with her partner, for better or worse. Life as a married couple suited Emma and Daniel more than either of them had imagined. Their wedding had been a beautiful celebration, filled with laughter, love, and heartfelt moments. But now, as they settled into their new life together, they faced the reality of blending two very different worlds. It wasn't always easy, but they approached every challenge with patience and understanding. Emma continued to run her workshop, which had grown into a thriving community center thanks to Daniel's support. Young people from all over the neighborhood came to learn about mechanics, engineering, and problem solving. Emma loved teaching them, watching their eyes light up when they figured out how something worked or fixed a broken machine for the first time. She felt proud knowing she was making a difference in their lives, just as Daniel had made a difference in hers. Daniel, meanwhile, focused on rebuilding his company after restructuring it. Without the pressure of investor demands, he was free to pursue projects that aligned with his values, projects aimed at solving real-world problems rather than chasing profits. He often visited Emma's workshop, fascinated by the creativity and energy of the young students. Sometimes he even joined in, helping them brainstorm ideas or offering advice based on his own experiences. Their shared passion for innovation brought them closer together. One evening, as they sat side by side at the kitchen table, Emma sketched designs for a new tool while Daniel reviewed blueprints for an upcoming project. The room was quiet except for the soft scratch of pencils against paper and the occasional clink of coffee cups. "You know," Daniel said suddenly, glancing at Emma, "we should collaborate on something." Emma looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" I mean, your work with the kids inspires me, Daniel explained. They're so full of ideas, so eager to learn. I think we could create something amazing if we combined our strengths. Emma tilted her head thoughtfully. Like what? Well, Daniel leaned forward, excitement sparking in his eyes. What if we built a program that connected my company's engineers with your students? They could mentor the kids, help them, turn their ideas into prototypes, maybe even launch some of those prototypes into actual products. Emma's face lit up. That's brilliant. It would give the kids hands-on experience and show them what's possible. And it would remind my team why we started doing this in the first place. To make a difference, Daniel added. It's a win-win. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to bring the idea to life. Emma reached out to her students, explaining the opportunity and encouraging them to submit their best ideas. Daniel coordinated with his team, selecting engineers who were passionate about mentoring and willing to volunteer their time. Together, they created a schedule that allowed everyone to participate without overwhelming anyone. The program quickly became a huge success. Students poured their hearts into their projects, working closely with the engineers to refine their designs. Some created tools to improve accessibility for people with disabilities, while others developed gadgets to tackle environmental issues like recycling or water conservation. Watching the collaboration unfold, Emma felt a deep sense of pride, not just in her students but in Daniel too. His willingness to share his resources and expertise showed her yet again how much he cared about making a positive impact. As the months passed, Emma and Daniel found themselves reflecting on how far they'd come since their first meeting on the airstrip. That chance encounter had changed both of their lives in ways neither of them could have predicted. What had started as a simple act of kindness, a mechanic fixing a billionaire's jet, had blossomed into a partnership built on trust, respect, and love. One crisp autumn morning, Emma woke early and slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb Daniel, who was still sleeping soundly. She pulled on a sweater and stepped onto the balcony of their penthouse suite, breathing in the cool air. Below, the city was just beginning to stir, its streets bathed in golden sunlight. She thought about everything they had accomplished together, the challenges they had overcome, the dreams they had pursued. Despite their differences, they had found common ground, building a life that honored both of their passions. Emma realized then that true success wasn't measured in wealth or fame. It was measured in the connections you made and the impact you left behind. A moment later, Daniel joined her on the balcony, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Morning," he murmured, kissing the top of her head. "Good morning," Emma replied, leaning back against him. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am." Daniel chuckled softly. "Me too. You've taught me so much, Emma, about resilience, humility, and finding joy in the little things. And you've shown me that it's okay to dream big," Emma added. "Together we can do anything." They stood there for a while, watching the sun rise higher in the sky. Eventually, Daniel broke the silence. "Do you remember the day we met?" he asked. Emma smiled, recalling the chaos of the airstrip and the skepticism in Daniel's eyes. "How could I forget? You didn't think I could fix your jet." Daniel laughed. "And look at us now. Who would have thought that a struggling mechanic and a billionaire would end up here?" "It's funny how life works sometimes," Emma said softly. "But I wouldn't change a thing." "Neither would I," Daniel agreed. "You're my partner, in every sense of the word." Later that day, they visited Emma's workshop where a group of students was presenting their latest project, a compact device designed to filter polluted air in urban areas. The engineers from Daniel's company praised the students' ingenuity, offering suggestions for improvement and promising to help them take the prototype to the next level. As Emma watched the interaction, she felt a surge of gratitude for her students, for Daniel, and for the journey that had led her here. Life hadn't always been kind to her, but it had given her something priceless, a chance to build something meaningful with someone she loved. That evening, as they drove home together, Daniel reached over to hold Emma's hand. You know, he said, this is just the beginning. We've got so much more to do. Emma squeezed his hand, smiling. I can't wait to see where it takes us. And with that, they drove off into the night, ready to face whatever the future held. Together.